Welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. And now it's time for our first topic of discussion in today's episode. And we're going to be talking about, of course, the parliamentary elections, the third and final stage of Egypt's transition to democracy. The first phase of the elections has ended, and it took place in 14 provinces, and we're going to be discussing the electoral process and the mood marred with the elections with our guest in the studio. We're most delighted to be joined by Mr. Mohsen Al Arishi. He's a political commentator and journalist. First of all, good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mohsen. Yes. First, tell us, how did you follow up the voting for the parliamentary elections in the past 2 days?
Yes. First of all, we should understand that we are Egypt, in KG1 democracy. We are not established democracy like Japan, like Germany, like US. So I was astonished that exaggerated reports about the low turnout. To me, it's okay that Egyptians are not interested in parliament elections, ordinary citizens, like presidential elections and the constitutional referendum. We should categorize Egyptian voters into different groups. First of all, some Egyptians believe that to have a president there in the presidential palace, it's okay. This is stability. And also we have now constitution. It's okay. That's all. Other Egyptians, ordinary citizens, are still traumatized, confused. In Japan or in US or in Britain, voters...
Yes, sir. Sorry to jump in here.
Yes.
They're confused, but don't they know that this parliament, once elected, could withdraw confidence from the president? The importance, having the importance of this House of Representatives and the importance of choosing the candidates is very critical.
I think the popularity, the huge popularity of President Sisi would protect him against vote of confidence from the parliament, because Egyptian ordinary citizens are very intelligent and they have understanding that the majority of MPs in the new parliament will be from the former NDP. So if they try to call for a vote of confidence against a popular president, the parliament will collapse, not the president. Because this president, President Sisi, has huge popularity.
Yes.
He is like a national hero. People trust him more than the parliament.
Yes.
That's why a big category of Egyptians have the feeling that as long as there is a Sisi in the presidential palace, that's all. They don't care about the parliament, because they understand that no economic programs have been introduced or were introduced by candidates. Back to my point, which was interrupted, in Britain or in Japan or in any established democracies, voters go to take the party which promises more economic gains, tax reduction, or... Here in Egypt, we are still, the candidates...
The campaigns were so weak, you mean?
So weak, and candidates were still engaged in internal battles.
Yes.
There was a war on former deputies of NDP, of ex-president Hosni Mubarak. Those deputies who are veteran MPs, if I can say that, were auctioned by different parties. Under Mubarak, parties would bribe voters, but now parties bribe candidates belonging to NDP to nominate themselves under the banner of this party, of that party. Al-Wafd, the Free Egyptians, everybody rushed because they don't have popularity, as you said, weak political parties. So the Egyptian voters cannot understand what are those people are doing. Then now we are witnessing a big number of candidates. Voters got confused.
2,500 something.
Of course, this is in my constituency, in my district. There are new faces. No one knows them. So the voters, I appreciate their decision to not to boycott, to stay at home.
To abstain.
Of course. This is not, this is not a message that they don't approve the political roadmap. But as I said, Egyptians, as long as there is president, we trust him. There is constitution. They trust the president, steps being taken by the president more than what the parliament will do. Because also there is a very interesting point. The president is increasing his efforts to improve economy, but the parliament is said to devote his responsibility to amend constitution, to approve laws. We are not in luxury. I mean Egyptian society. We came back, or we rose from the rubble of 2 revolutions, and people cannot find some money in their pockets, cannot dream of a new future. The dream is being rekindled by President Sisi alone. But the parliament, I mean the candidates, are quarreling or struggling with each other just to be there to amend the constitution. No economic programs. And general elections depend entirely not on political affairs but on economic programs. Even in US, Obama won the presidential elections when he offered new health welfare,
yes.
of course, health welfare and economic programs to the Americans. That's why they supported him. This is the rule in general election, that if you offer voters more economic gains, you will win. And here in Egypt, we have nothing. Prices are increasing in the local markets, and people still try to keep alive their dream of better future. This dream is still at the hand of the president, not the parliament. The parliament, the candidates didn't introduce programs, and then we have the young people who abstained. I should agree with your term, abstained from voting in this parliament. Because I compare young people like fence sitters. They are watching like this. They don't have jobs. They don't have someone from the candidates to promise them that I'll try to help you to find a job, to marry. That's why young people said, okay, this is your game, especially after NDPs, ex-deputies controlled or overwhelmed the scene. Now,
okay,
yes.
So do you expect more participation in the second round of parliamentary elections, and how can we avoid these mistakes from happening again? We have 1 month now.
Everybody did mistake.
Yes.
Everybody did something wrong, including the media, candidates, the parties. Parties realized that they have no influence in the political street. That's why they were marginalized, and they try to rush or to invite veteran candidates, veteran deputies who have big families. This is also one point. A tribal influence, I mean the influence of big families, will play a big role. That's why weak parties rush to those veteran deputies who have big families, who have money, who have factories in which there are tens of thousands of workers, so they are their voters. So this is the point.
Don't you think, sir, that speaking about that is reminiscent of Mubarak's era?
No, no, the situation is completely different.
I mean, directing the voters and bribing them and the money, the influence of money, these techniques were used during the era of former or ousted President Hosni Mubarak?
This is a very good question, but my point is that under Mubarak, Egyptian voters allowed him do whatever we like, and we are staying at home because there is no harm. But now, after erasing or eliminating political system of Mubarak, two political systems of Mubarak and ex-President Mohammed Morsi, ousted President Mohammed Morsi, Egyptians now are satisfied that there is a president we trust, and the parliament cannot eliminate or cannot oust this president, because the majority of Egyptian people, and this is very also extraordinary, Sisi's supporters belong to low income and toiling categories. They are still confident that this man will help improve even a little their living standards. But under Mubarak, Egyptians were helpless. The president they don't trust, and he did everything he liked without consulting the people, without taking their advice. The situation is different. That's why, but your question is very good. Mubarak's deputies are being recycled in this new parliament. But I think they learned the lesson.
So don't you think this is a setback for the revolution?
No, no, they learned the lesson. They cannot do or repeat the mistakes, horrible mistakes, disastrous mistakes, economically, politically, under Mubarak. I think they learned the lesson. They will be more wise or wiser to approach the people. No, you cannot set the clock back to Mubarak's era. Never, never.
So, in your opinion, what are the challenges that will face the new parliament?
First of all, we should acknowledge that the biggest challenge is the constitution, the amendment of the constitution. As my friend said, the constitution gave the parliament the power to call for vote of confidence of the president and to form the government. I mean, the president's power under this constitution is trimmed. The president is powerless. He is just like a symbol of the Republic of Egypt. So this article in particular, I support calls or voices calling for its amendment because we are building a new country. So the president should not be helpless, especially under the constitution. The president is the supreme commander of the armed forces, and we are now at war with the terrorists in Sinai, in Libya, everywhere, Egypt, and especially now. Before these parliament elections, Egypt won landslide victory in the UN Security Council. And as we said before, Egypt has excellent and strong relationship with the big guys at the table in the Security Council, with no exception. All heads of state of these superpowers, big countries, which have the veto power, came to Cairo to listen to President Sisi. So I don't think that such a president who has international fame, his advice is appreciated by the big powers in our world, should be like this in front of the parliament, should not be helpless in front of the parliament. So another article is that the president has no power to form the government or to change the prime minister. And we knew that some reports saying that some parties, I don't want to mention names, are struggling to win majority in the parliament to form the government. But this article also should be amended to give the president, who promised the Egyptians a new future, to fulfill his promises. Otherwise, I want the nation to ask the president, not the parliament, because sincerity is in society, not in the parliament. This is my point in this.
Yeah. But I'm feeling from your comments, sir, that you're marginalizing the role of the parliament.
Now, in this era, yes, yes. You should talk about or expect something concrete and fruitful, constructive from the parliament after 4 years. As well as we should expect healthy democracy after 4 or 8 years. We are now, rising from the upper. We are still traumatized. People, I am always talking about ordinary citizens or toiling categories. They are still waiting for something to feel that their lives have been changed. Again, in the presidential elections, in the constitutional elections, because we were laying the stones for not new democracy, because we are still don't have democracy in Egypt. We should not compare ourselves in our comments on the low turnout, the abstention by young people. We should not compare ourselves with established or healthy democracy like in Europe, in Asia, India, or somewhere else. We are still like, Egypt is like a baby, still creeping or limping towards not democracy, towards a new era in which, of course, we won't be like American citizens, very rich or affluent, but to feel that we are improving our lives.
But in your opinion, is this moderate participation by Egyptian voters was expected, or it was a surprise for many?
Of course, you should expect.
It was expected.
Voters don't know the candidates.
Yes.
Everywhere, across in the first stage,
yes.
Voters went to the voting stations, and they sought help from someone. Who is this guy? Who is this guy?
So whose mistake is this?
Excuse me?
Whose mistake is this?
We should blame the government, the higher election commission, the parties. We should ignore parties because they don't have any influence.
Just 60 seats out of almost 400. So
yes, also the biggest mistake was committed by the alliances, the political alliances formed, and the candidates, independent candidates. The voters in Egypt were busy following the legal battles about any rule or law issued by the higher election commission.
Yes.
If even the division of constituencies, many people challenged it. Then they said, okay, we are going to refer this challenge to the administrative court. The society, Egyptian society, was involved in watching legal battles, the developments of legal proceedings, of lawsuits submitted or lodged by candidates, by political parties, challenging election law, division of constituency, challenging everything, trying to oust this candidate or this kind, like Billy Dancer, Sam al-Masri, like Ahmed Az.
Yes.
There was no...
The media was occupied by trivial things, yes.
There was no propaganda. No candidate or party or alliance was busy trying to explain itself, to explain its program, to explain its future plans to the voters. That's why the voters...
confused what they were.
Whom should I select, I take? This is the problem. The media, of course, were more interested in following legal battles in the administrative court, or to expect the cancellation or the suspension of election battle than to try to increase the awareness of the readers of the society about the importance, the key importance, fundamental importance of this parliament, about who is this candidate, what he is going to do, why this alliance is popular, why these parties are weak. No, we were confused.
Yes.
Everybody was confused. Yes.
So don't you think that the decision by the government to even postpone the elections would have been a good idea?
We should not say that it was a good idea to postpone.
No, I mean, if it, given the fact that the political parties are fragmented, the people are confident in the president, they don't know the candidates, there's political adolescence, let's say, now. So, I mean, the idea of not having a House of Representatives now, why wasn't it not welcomed by the government?
I should refer to to an interesting point. Egypt won non-permanent seat in UN Security Council without having a parliament. This is, I think, first time in the international law or history of this international organization to select or to accept, invite country with shortcomings in its democracy to sit next to the big guys, to the big democracies on the table. The first time. You don't have, still you don't have parliament because you won before you fulfilled the parliament elections. We are still, should wait until November to conclude the second stage.
Yes.
But the world community welcomed you to sit next to them. I mean the big democracy. So I think without the parliament, you will still be limping at home. At home. This message should be at home. Now you are accepted internationally. It doesn't matter to have a parliament. You are doing your best to have a parliament. The world community trusts you or trusted you and invited you. But parliament is very important at home,
yes.
Domestically.
Okay.
So yes. President Sisi doesn't now. He can increase his efforts internationally. And by the way, I should mention an important point.
Egypt very quickly, please, sir, if you can, because we're running out of time.
Okay. Egypt will not be like a guest at the table of the non-permanent UN Security Council. Egypt will be decision maker because everybody will listen to Egypt's advice, to Egypt's arrangements for political solutions everywhere in this troubled world.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Mohsen Al Arishi, journalist and writer.
Most welcome.
Thank you for being with us today.
Most welcome.
Thank you, sir, for your insight, and thank you for being with us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And dear viewers, a short break, and then we'll be back to resume the remaining segments of The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International.